You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Friday, November 30th, 2018. It is also the feast day of Saint Andrew. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we have been talking about materialism. We talked about how we are oftentimes disappointed after we get that thing we longed for, because our longing is to fill an emptiness inside of us, an emptiness that can only be filled by God. We also talked about how not all of us are called to own nothing, but we oftentimes need to pause and wonder, do I love this thing more than I love God? And is this thing I own turning me into a terrible person? We also looked at the example of Mary, who was assumed body and soul into heaven, and how our material possessions connect us to earth and won't allow us to fly to God at the end of our lives. Yesterday, we talked about a spirit of generosity and how giving what we can to other people is saying to God and saying to the world that I believe that people are more important than stuff. Today, on the feast day of St. Andrew, we are going to talk about why we oftentimes want so much stuff. Now, the reason why we want so much stuff, and let me tell you, this is as true for adults as it is for children. The reason why we want so much stuff is often because we're worried about what other people think about us. We want to drive a certain car, or wear certain clothes, or live in a certain neighborhood, in a certain type of house, because we want other people to think we're successful, we're smart, we're wealthy, whatever it might be. Maybe for you, you want to wear a certain type of clothes or have a certain toy or a certain pair of shoes because you don't want to look weird. You want people to think that you're cool. Well, here is a lesson from Saint Andrew. You should stop caring about what other people think and care only about what God thinks, because He is the only one that matters. Let me tell you a little bit about St. Andrew. St. Andrew was one of the early apostles. He was chosen by Jesus to follow him, to sit at his feet and learn. He also abandoned Jesus at the crucifixion. He was the brother of St. Peter. But like many of the apostles after the resurrection, he was on fire with the faith. He set out to tell everyone about the faith. He was a fierce preacher. And like many of the apostles, he was executed. He was put to death because of his love for Jesus. St. Andrew was crucified on an X-shaped cross. So instead of one board up and one board across, they were both at diagonals, with his arms spread above and his legs spread below. However, even though things looked terrible, even though St. Andrew was going to die, he refused to stop preaching on the cross. People thought he was crazy, but he refused to stop spreading the good news about Jesus Christ. In fact, eventually, people got so fed up that they took him down from the cross before he even died. Now, this was before modern medicine, so St. Andrew did eventually die from his wounds. But he didn't care one bit what people thought about him. He didn't care. He simply cared what God thought. He cared about spreading the message of Jesus Christ. And that should be the same for you, my friend. Who cares what kind of shoes you have? Who cares if you have the latest toy? God doesn't. Maybe your friend does. Maybe your neighbor does. But is their opinion really more important than God's? It can't be. And so, Sprouts, here is my challenge for you today. I would like you to ask for the intercession of Saint Andrew. Pray this prayer. Saint Andrew, help me to realize that only God's opinion of me matters. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. And finally, a quick heads up to the parents. As we work our way through November, we of course are looking forward to December and Advent. Here on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we will be spending all of Advent exploring the Jesse tree, meaning we will be talking about many of Jesus' ancestors as a way to prepare our hearts to welcome him at Christmas. If you would like to explore the Jesse tree even further at home with your family, I encourage you to look into a beautiful new resource. It's a devotional book for Catholic families that explores the Jesse tree. It takes the stress off of you, gives lots of biblical context, and also is designed to truly teach children about the amazing plan that God has had in place for our salvation from the very, very beginning. To explore this book and the ornaments that go with it, head to DoSmallThingsWithLove /Jesse-Tree.